So today we're going to do something a little different. I am going to show you how to do a complete tune-up on your push mower. This one happens to be a Troy-Bilt with a Briggs & Stratton engine, and it's self-propelled. I'll get a little bit more into the details as we go. But as I said, I'm going to show you how to do a complete tune-up on this that is going to involve replacing the blade, changing the oil, replacing the spark plug, replacing your air filter, cleaning the underside, repainting the underside if it needs it. Basically a complete overhaul of this mower. One of the first things you want to do, if your mower happens to be a bagger style mower like this, you want to remove your bag, and then you're going to take this out to, say, your garden hose, and you're going to want to set it up in some fashion. Spray from the outside, and what that'll do is that it'll actually blow a lot of this grass out, and your bagger will actually function a lot better than it did before. So if you notice that your bagger isn't actually collecting as much as it used to, or it's not collecting at all, normally it's one of two things. One, it's your blade, or two, it's your bagger's actually clogged up. But make sure it's dry before you put it back on and go to mow, because otherwise it's just going to reclog your bagger. Okay, now we're going to get on to the actual tune-up. Here are some of the things that you're going to need. A drain pan, some oil, some carburetor cleaner, some spray paint to match the colors of your mower, an air cleaner, a spark plug, the proper blade for your mower, and some painter's tape. Here are some of the tools that you're going to need. You're going to need a jack stand, a couple ratchets, a 13/16 socket, a 5/8 socket, a 3/8 socket, a 5/16 socket, a 1/4 inch socket, a small extension, multiple brushes, a flat and Phillips head screwdriver, multiple scrapers, a spark plug gap gauge, and a block of wood. At this point, you're going to want to take your Phillips screwdriver and take these two screws out of the top of your mower. A little tip, put the screws back in their location so you don't get them mixed up with any other hardware or screws that we may take off later. I'll be saying this throughout the video quite a lot. Your mower may be different, but most mowers are relatively the same. This should give you a general idea of how to do it. The reason why I removed the plastic cover is that gives you access to the top of the mower so you could actually clean up in here, because this will be full of dirt and just grime and gunk and all kinds of stuff. And you'll use like a soft brush and a shop vac for that. I should have some footage of that I'll throw in here. Now that you've seen that, our next step is going to be up at the handle of the mower. Okay, now that we're up here at the handle of the mower, if any of you actually have a mower, you're probably familiar with this little safety bar here. Well, basically you have to have this down to keep the engine running. I'll explain why we will need the engine running when we get back down to that area, but this is where your painter's tape is going to come in. The reason why I say to use painter's tape is because it's not really strong tape, so what you're going to want to do is pull your handle down and just put, if you can, just one wrap, if that's enough to hold your handle down. Some of them are more stiff than others, but you just want your handle held down. The reason why you only want one wrap is so that if you need to quickly shut the mower off, you're not fumbling around with some really strong tape or multiple wraps of tape. You can just break that tape right off. So let's retape that. And the reason why I say if you need to shut your mower off quickly is because we're going to be working down at the engine with it running. At this point, if you're not comfortable with working on the mower while the engine is running, this part is not absolutely necessary, but I am showing you how to do a complete tune-up on your mower. Okay, our next step is where you're going to want to take your flathead screwdriver and we're going to remove your air filter housing. Here's your filter This is your filter housing along with the backing of your filter housing. You'll want to clean this out. And a lot of people will tell you, just, take a vacuum cleaner to your filter. Well, you can do that, but you can only do that so many times. So at this point, if you've been vacuuming your filter out and it starts to look like this and you're getting it discolored, basically now is when you want to toss it. You just want to get completely rid of that thing. The reason why we took the filter housing off now is so that we have access to the carburetor. I don't have the camera down far enough so you can actually see in there, but inside here is the inlet of your carburetor. And we have the housing off so we could actually get to your throttle linkage and all of that. And this is the point where we're going to have the mower running. And you want to make sure you have all of your tools clear of the mower, and you want to do this step with the old engine oil in it. Okay, before we start the mower, I wanted to show you the throttle linkage, which is down in here. This, when you push on this, when the mower is running, this will actually rev the engine up. Here's a closer view of the throttle linkage that I was talking about. When you push on this, it opens up the carburetor, which in turn will rev up the engine. This is something that you're going to need to do in the next step. Start your mower and then come down here, and if you've never done it before, get familiar with that little throttle linkage. Sit here and mess with it while it's running. The mower is going to start to get hot, so try not to touch anything other than down here at the carburetor on the linkage. Start the mower and just, kind of push on it a couple times and get a feel for it. You'll actually hear the mower rev up and down, rev up and down. Think of this as your gas pedal. Okay, now that we've covered that, what you're going to do is you're going to take your carburetor cleaner and you're going to rev the mower just a little bit above what it normally runs at. Most modern day mowers, they have them set at a fairly low RPM, just enough basically to cut the grass. But what you can do with this is speed it up. So speed it up just a little bit. Don't push it all the way in to where, because you just, run this thing crazy. But just give it a little bit basically, and then you're going to spray directly into the carburetor in small little bursts, like just a small little burst. I don't know if you can see that. Just something like that. And what it's going to do is the engine is going to bog down and try to die. Well, that's why you do it in small little bursts. If the engine dies, then you sprayed too much. Start it over, start the mower, start the process over. And that's also why you are going to be controlling the linkage here to keep the engine RPMs up so it'll keep running. This is actually going to suck the carburetor cleaner through the carburetor and clean out the insides of the carburetor. So I'm going to start the mower and then I'll come back down here. Okay, there, as you've seen on that, you really shouldn't have to use a whole lot of carburetor cleaner. Just little bursts like that, and that should have the inside of the carburetor cleaned out. And like I said, this is a part that you can skip if you don't feel comfortable with. Now, we are going to change the oil. I'm going to go ahead and put our new filter in, because in order to change the oil, you don't have to do this, but it makes it a little easier. I'm going to take the mower outside, start it, let it run for a little while, and basically let the oil get hot, and then the oil will actually drain a lot quicker. So there's our new filter. Okay, I just brought the mower back in from outside. You're going to want to get your drain pan. Take out your dipstick. You're going to want to take it and set it off to the side. And you're basically just going to want to tip the mower to drain the oil out. What I do is I'll bring this up here just to get it close enough, and you'll start to see the oil come out. And you'll want to let it sit there and get all of the oil out. Okay, now we're going to get to changing the blade. What you're going to want to do is lift your mower, take your jack stand, slide it under your mower, then you're going to take your block of wood, put it against the blade, and kind of just wedge it in here against something underneath. Take your socket wrench with your 5/8 socket and this single bolt here. You're going to undo this bolt. There you go. And while you've got it up on a jack stand like this, it's a good time to, you can take a scraper and try to scrape off some of the gunk that you've got under here. As you can see, I've managed to get all of the grass and rust and dirt and grime and all that stuff off of there. And I used our red spray paint and went ahead and painted the underside red again. Okay, now we are going to put the new blade on here. And you would use your block of wood and your ratchet again. But I'm trying to get this finished up fairly quickly, so I've got power tools. There's the blade. Now, set the mower back down. Now that the mower is flipped back over, I'll wipe that off to make sure it's not going to leak anywhere. Get this cover out of the way. There's another thing that we're going to do that most people don't do for a tune-up on their mower. Before we put the oil back in, we are going to remove the gas tank. Not completely, but partially. There's 3 5/16 bolts right here. Again, your lawnmower may be different, but this should just give you a general idea. And just be careful at this point because the mower is still pretty warm. But we're not going to be disconnecting fuel line or anything like that. We're just going to unbolt the gas tank and kind of rotate it out of the way. Got those 3 5/16 out of there. Now we take our small extension in our 3/8 inch socket, and there is a 3/8 bolt that's back here at the back of the gas tank that you get at from the side. Now that those are out, we can take the gas tank and rotate it out of the way. Then what we're going to do is take our 5/16, and this is why we're not putting oil in it yet. We're going to remove this bolt here that holds the filler neck on. This is why we're not putting oil back in it, because if this was to still have oil in it, when we pull this out, you would have a huge overflow of oil. You would have a big mess on your hands. And then we're going to take our 3/8 socket again. There's 2 bolts on the back of the engine cover that we're going to remove. Now remember, these bolts are going to be kind of warm depending on how soon you do this right after you change the oil. So the ones that I've got in my hand now are a little more hot than they are warm. Then there's 2 more 3/8 on the front of the engine cover. And again, they're most likely going to be hot. And it is still pretty warm. Now we could rotate the engine cover back. And now, I'm not sure if you can see all of this dirt and stuff that's in here, and our coil. Okay, and right here is our coil. And it's got 2 1/4-inch bolts that are holding it in place. And this is another thing that doesn't have to be done, and if you're not comfortable with, I wouldn't do, because the coil actually has an adjustment to it. Okay, right in here, it's just at the bottom where they really make contact, but I'm going to go ahead and clean the whole thing. I'm using brass because it's softer, so I don't do any wear to the coil itself. And now you can see that that is much cleaner. Now we're going to set it back in place, get our 1/4-inch bolts, get both of them started. And if this is the first time you're setting up a coil on a small engine and you're worried about getting the distance and everything set correctly, a little trick is to not clean the top of the coil and just line it back up with the dirt, and you'll be lined up pretty much where it was before. Okay, now we're going to pull the spark plug wire and use our 13/16 to unscrew the old spark plug. Okay, there we go. Now we have 30 thousandths gap. Thread our new spark plug in and just snug it up. It doesn't have to be overly tight. Now that that's there, we'll plug that back in. Okay, we're going to put the engine cover back on. Then we're going to take our filler neck and put it back in. And if you've noticed, I've actually left the dipstick way over there across the room, so I know when I go looking for it, I'll remember that I haven't put oil back in this engine yet. And the last thing you need to do is fill it up with 18 ounces of oil. And again, I guess I didn't mention the funnel and things that you would need, because technically you don't need a funnel, but I have shaky hands, so a funnel helps. Put the dipstick back in, and let's just check it just to be sure. And we are perfect. I'm going to open up the garage door and fire it up. Okay, we're going to try to see what it's like on the first start. I'm not going to do any mowing because I mowed just the other day, but I'm going to see how it runs.